he's told him in no uncertain terms that he needs to move. He needs to move out, downsize to Frogmore Cottage, which is Harry and Meghan's old place nearby within the Windsor Great Park security cordon. Andrew, however, is refusing to budge. He's got a lease. He doesn't want to go anywhere. And this is there at loggerheads, but it's not going to end, without a fight on both sides.
Now, the Duke of York is a squatter. So writes Kate Mansey, the Times' royal editor, in the paper today. With no royal role left to play, the King is understood to be putting pressure on Prince Andrew to move out of Royal Lodge. And Kate Mansey joins us now. Good afternoon.
Nice to be with you.
So just give us a sense of the relationship at the moment between the King and his brother, and why Royal Lodge has become such a sticking point.
Well, I've been looking into this for quite some time now, and it's become such a point that's so fraught between the King and the Duke of York that it's been described to me as the siege of Royal Lodge. So this is the 30-room mansion where Andrew lives, Prince Andrew lives. Obviously, he doesn't have any kind of official royal role after stepping down some years ago over the ill-advised friendship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And that means that he doesn't have any kind of public funding. After a Home Office review, that his security is not funded by the state either. So the King funds his lifestyle. The King has now run out of patience with his brother. He doesn't wish to continue to provide £4 million plus a year, which is what it's costing to keep Andrew there, with an estimated £3 million security bill. So he's told him in no uncertain terms that he needs to move. He needs to move out, downsize to Frogmore Cottage, which is Harry and Meghan's old place nearby within the Windsor Great Park security cordon. Andrew, however, is refusing to budge. He's got a lease. He doesn't want to go anywhere. And this is there at loggerheads, but it's not going to end, without a fight on both sides.
No, but the thing is, Frogmore Cottage, I mean, when you say it sounds like a small, quaint property, but it's pretty big. It's not really a cottage at all. So it's a lovely place he's being offered.
Yes, and remember the Duke and Duchess of Sussex weren't there for very long, were they, before they decided to move out and move to the States. So it's not like he's being forced to live in a very small digs. This was lovingly restored by Meghan very tastefully, I understand. And those close to the King are saying to me that they will be happy to provide for Andrew and his ex-wife. So he lives in Royal Lodge with Sarah Ferguson, despite the fact that they divorced many years ago. But the King's still willing to provide, but he just thinks that it should be at a more appropriate level. He doesn't think that Andrew, who doesn't have any discernible official role, should be allowed to continue to live in this huge estate. And Royal Lodge is massive. It's not just this sort of one big mansion. There's a swimming pool in the grounds. It contains the Royal Chapel, which is where Beatrice got married. So but it's huge. It's too big for him and Sarah Ferguson, is the argument of the King's friends. And it's got to such a point that it was described to me that it can be done tidily or it can be done untidily. But either way, Andrew is being very much pushed to move. And if he doesn't, that generosity from the King is going to run out.
How would untidily moving him, how would that actually look in practice?
Well, I think he would... He was described to me that he's a prisoner of his own pride. So it's unclear at this stage where his money will come from to continue to live in this lifestyle if the King decides to kind of pull the plug on the funding. If he does, then it could become quite bitter. It could be a matter of some disgrace, I think, for Andrew if he continues to try to live there with whatever funds he has. It was unclear to me during the course of the investigation what money he's got coming in, except for the generosity of his brother from the King's private funds. I have to say, Andrew isn't in receipt of any public money, but he's got his naval pension. Well, that won't stretch to the lifestyle to which he has become accustomed. So I think if the money runs out, there's also an issue of the Royal Collection Trust has some extraordinary paintings and artefacts which are housed within Royal Lodge. So at some stage, if the insurance isn't paid on that property in a way that's suitable for those historic artefacts, then they could be taken out. So you could be in a situation where he's staying put but the money runs out, and that's why it was described to me as the siege of Royal Lodge, because those close to Andrew are saying he ain't going to budge.
It's a great phrase that you mentioned a moment ago. He's a prisoner of his own pride. Is Prince Andrew still in denial? Has he fully come to terms with the fact that he's living in disgrace?
Well, I think for years he didn't want to admit it. So when he first initially stepped down in November 2019, it was all seen from his point of view to be a kind of a temporary measure. There might be some rehabilitation. But in the kind of the last few months of the late Queen's reign, Charles had to have this kind of unsavory conversation with him to say, look, there's no way back for you. This isn't going to, that it's not about stepping away from the role for a bit and then resuming some roles. There's never going to be a point at which you can come back into the firm, as Prince Philip used to refer to it, and take up some of those patronages and any of that official work. That's gone. And that, I understand, was a really kind of tearful encounter for Andrew, which took place up at Birk Hall on the Balmoral estate. And the king doesn't like confrontation, but he's got to a point now where, if anything is going to impact on the monarchy or on his reign, then I think he's going to be quite hard in the measures that he takes.
Kate, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Kate Mansey there, the Times' royal editor, talking about Prince Andrew. Afternoon to Nick on WhatsApp, who says, at least the stress of potentially being made homeless won't make Prince Andrew sweat.